feel that John Fetterman is an extraordinary candidate, and Dr. Oz is an extraordinarily bad candidate. He is so bad that they are writing opinion pieces in the Hill that you should vote for Mehmet Oz because he's clueless about the economy. I shit you not. The Pennsylvania Senate race between John Fetterman and Mehmet Oz, I say it wrong every time, I apologize, is being closely watched, and it should be. Whoever wins will not only represent his state's interests, but also likely be extremely influential in what is projected to be a very narrowly divided Senate after the midterm. There are many social issues, such as abortion, gun control, and crime, that are high of mind for many voters, but as a small business owner who works directly with hundreds of other business executives, both in Pennsylvania and around the country, I think it's important to be clear which candidate would be better for business. That candidate is Mehmet Oz. So, yeah. Why would Oz be good for business? Because John Fetterman would kick authority in the balls.
He's kicking authority in the balls.
Some of us are for it. I totally understand this dude's position. He should be scared. Why should you vote for Oz? Because Mehmet Oz would be a terrible senator. But also, and I have no doubt about this, he'll be a very good Republican.
Do you think we're stupid? You think we're fools?
The entire Oz campaign has been one giant endorsement for John Fetterman. Who, by the way, sat down for an interview with NBC News. It's rather lengthy. We'll watch a good portion of it here because Fetterman rocks.
Start with how we're set up here. This is very different than the last time we were here in your home and talking. Walk me through why we need the closed captioning, how it works.
Yeah, it's really just how things happen, because I sometimes will hear things in a way that's not perfectly clear. So I use captioning. So I'm able to see what you're saying in captioning, and I'm able to respond with the question.
And that's the auditory processing.
Yeah,
issue.
that auditory processing where I'll hear someone speaking, but sometimes I'll be able to be precise on what exactly that they're saying. I use captioning.
So you can make sure that you know exactly what I'm asking you.
Yeah, exactly. I know what you're being said to make sure that I'm able to give the perfect answer.
Well, look, this is clearly not the typical candidate interview. You had a stroke just days before the primary here. This is the first time you've sat down with a journalist in person. You have closed captioning technology to help with those auditory processing issues. Will this impact how you do your job if elected? For example, will you need potentially accommodations like this on the Senate floor?
I don't think it's going to have an impact. I feel like I'm going to get better and better every day. And by January, I'm going to be much better, and Dr. Oz is still going to be a fraud.
That's what I was assuming, that strokes take a little bit of time to relearn things, right? It is typical for him to be missing a step or two during the recovery process the first few months after a stroke, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not a medical expert by any means. I didn't realize it had hit him this hard. He does still seem to be all there, just having a little trouble being as snappy as what he used to be. I didn't realize it had hit him this hard. So this is an interesting interview, but right there, I mean, that was an incredibly witty remark that he just fired back. So he's clearly got the mental capacity.
But I guess what I'm saying is that there really isn't anything that's going to stop me from doing this job.
I mean, it took you a long time to get back on the campaign trail. Can voters trust that you will be able to do this job on day one?
Yeah, of course. I think that the campaign itself is is incredibly difficult, and even with or without having the stroke is an issue. But I've been able to run a successful campaign despite having the issues with auditory processing, etc. So I believe I'm going to be able to serve effectively.
You've been on this road of recovery. I'm sure it hasn't been easy. This is a serious health condition. This is a serious health issue that you experienced. What has that recovery process been like? How has it changed your day-to-day experience?
It's everything. It changes everything.
Yeah.
Everything about it has changed. Basically, having a conversation with your wife, to having a conversation with your children, just things, especially early after the stroke, the ability to really understand exactly what I'm being heard but it gets much, much better where I take in a lot. But to be precise, I use captioning. So that's really the major challenge. And every now and then I'll miss a word every now and then, or sometimes I'll maybe mush two words together. But as soon as I have captioning, I'm able to understand exactly what's being asked. But even after the stroke, immediately after that, I was able to read everything, and I haven't lost any memories or anything like that. It's just really the lingering issue that I have.
Yeah, I mean, I know before this you admitted you hadn't really thought about your health very much. You hadn't taken great care of yourself. What's it like now for you? Is there some frustration in having to face this, every day?
It's not frustration. It's just a challenge, actually. And I always thought I was pretty emphatic. I think I was empathetic. That's an example of the stroke, empathetic. I always thought I was very empathetic before having a stroke. But now after having that stroke, I really understand, much more kind of the challenges that Americans have day in and day out. So I think it's really reminded me that, one, how critical healthcare is, because healthcare saved my life. I wouldn't have survived if I didn't have the kind of healthcare that I have, and it also the support that I get going to having speech therapy, and just making sure getting back to being to 100%. Those are the kind of resources everyone deserves to get, because strokes can have to anybody.
I mean, when you have moments like you had just now where...
Fantastic answer.
...getting a word out, right? How does that feel for someone who, as a politician, a lot of what you do is talk to constituents, talk to your colleagues, right? What's that experience like of just not quite being able to get the words out in the way that you want them to?
No, I don't think it was hard. It was just about having to be thinking more slower to just understand. And sometimes that's kind of the processing that happens.
So you say you're on the road to full recovery, but right now, voters really have to take your word for it. We've asked for your medical records. We've asked to have a conversation with someone from your medical team, to interview your physician. You've declined those requests. Why?
Well, I feel like we have been very transparent in a lot of different ways. When our doctor has already given a letter saying that I'm able to serve and to be running. And then I think you can't be any more transparent than standing up on a stage with 3,000 people and having a speech without a teleprompter, and just being and putting everything and yourself out there like that. I think that's as transparent as everyone in Pennsylvania can see.
I mean, respectfully, that letter from your physician, that was 6 months ago. You've talked to yourself about how this is a journey. The recovery process can be up and down. Don't voters deserve to know your status now?
As I said, being in front of thousands and thousands of people and having interviews and getting around all across Pennsylvania, that gives everybody and the voters decide, if they think that it's really the issue.
But the voters aren't doctors, right? I mean, look, you have styled yourself as the no bullshit candidate, right? It's why a lot of people are drawn to you. Sometimes
he's kicking authority in the balls.
Sometimes, like in moments like this, that gets tested.
That's what we like about him.
Why not follow through on that and be fully transparent and release all of that information?
No, and I said I am putting everything tested. I am being out and being tested day in and day out. And if my doctor,
We're 7 minutes into
already
this
said that
interview.
I'm fine,
And the only conversation about policy has come from Fetterman turning her question around into a matter of policy, using his stroke to talk about the need for healthcare and expanding healthcare access. Like, there has been no policy questions from the interviewer at all.
I'm ready to go on that, then I'm not really sure that's much more beyond transparent.
But we're taking your word for what your doctors are telling you, right? We haven't heard from
Move
them.
on.
Well, I mean, if they believe that I was ready to do that, and I've been able to successfully do that kind of campaigning, I think that demonstrates what they've said in their opinions were actually pretty accurate.
And I know this is a tough conversation for you to have, but look, this isn't without precedent, right? In 2012, Senator Mark Kirk of Illinois suffered a stroke during his race. After some pressure, he released records. You've been called on by the Washington Post, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, the New York Times. There are a lot of folks asking for this, so why not?
No
Republican candidate like Herschel Walker would agree to this kind of probing.
As I said, I feel like, I've been very transparent to the point of what voters could make the decision on whether I'm fit to run or fit to serve.
In what way do you think you've been transparent?
As I said, I put out an evaluation of my medical team.
Seriously, clinically.
Campaigning and going around everywhere, all across Pennsylvania.
This is NBC News.
And I think they're able to make their own their decision.
All right, and just to be clear right now, are there any other symptoms or health conditions that you have not disclosed?
I'm sorry, no, I don't, in terms of the auditory processing and things like that.
In terms of any symptoms related to the stroke or any other conditions, you hadn't disclosed the AFib you were diagnosed with 5 years ago. Is there anything else that...
Why would that even be an
Any
issue?
other conditions or symptoms that you have not told voters about?
As far
How
as I
many
know,
Americans have issues
you
with
know,
AFib? Have 1 in 5, 1 in 6, or something? I don't know what the
You've
number
got a
is.
debate coming up in a
I'm
couple
sure
of
it's
weeks. There's been a
pretty
lot of
common.
debate about the debate. Are you committed to showing up on October 25th to debate your opponent no matter what happens?
no, I'm not concerned.
Yes, October 25th. I'm very much looking forward to that debate.
Be transparent, and people can make their own decisions, during the debate.
Sorry, to clarify, are you committed to showing up on October 25th no matter what your opponent says or does?
Well, yeah, of course I'm going to show up on the.
Well, actually, you might be right on that.
How has your prep for a moment like this changed from the primary? Considering the auditory processing issues, some of the issues with speech, what has the prep been like? And are you confident going into that debate?
It's going to be basically the same kind of prepping as it would be for any debate, except I'm just going to make sure that we have captioning included in all of it.
How have you been?
Which I think is perfectly reasonable.
Practicing and figuring out the technological issues.
So you've acknowledged your race is very close. Josh Shapiro, who's running for governor, is sort of running away with his race, which indicates that there might be.
Doug
some
Mastriano is a
about
particularly
voting for
bad
Shapiro and
candidate.
Voting for Oz. Why do you think that is?
I think that the difference in there is that we've had over $20 million unload on us in the last 5 weeks. So of course that's had an impact.
Now, NBC News does deserve criticism for this, but also I'm sure the campaign's motive was like, well, let's send him out there and show the media. Let's dispel this by letting him give a long-form interview and show that he is fit.
On the race. And Fox News has all ganged up on us. And every night, in fact, more than every other of the candidates combined, actually, and that's a truth. So that's changed the dynamic there, too. When the other opponent, Doug Mastriano, hasn't spent any money or any commercials or any kinds of backs. So of course that really reflects the dynamic, quite to be honest.
So with that, I mean, how confident do you feel about your ability to clinch this thing?
I'm going to run the kind of race that we've run. And of course, it'll be closer, but it's a different kind of race, a different dynamic, and it's a national call that is going to be made at the national level, not just in Pennsylvania. So you have resources, you have PACs, and you have Mitch McConnell and other people involved in bringing in tens of millions of dollars that just are absent in the gubernatorial race.
The president just took a major step on the issue of marijuana decriminalization, pardoning thousands. I know you had some conversations with the president when he was here. What can you tell us about those conversations and how momentous
I'll smoke to that.
it is in your view?
I think it's really, it's going to change the nation in a way in terms of our conversation about marijuana and allowing to be on the path to bringing where it should have always been. It should be legalized, and people shouldn't have had their careers damaged for having just simply using a plant and using it in a way that it's legal in some states, or it's illegal in others. Those kind of charges carry you for your life. And given that second chance, I think, is what a majority of Americans would want to see happening. And I believe that even in very conservative states like South Dakota, other these kind of states have already voted democratically to make it legalizing it. So it's really not controversial. It's just the right way to go.
Speaking of pardons, as Lieutenant Governor, one of your big jobs, one of the things that you were most passionate and proud of is being head of the Board of Pardons. I know it's
one of the reasons why the right is attacking him right now.
But your opponent has attacked you for some of the moves you made as head of the Board of Pardons.
I just said that.
And he's very much trying to make crime an issue in this race. But it's not just Oz, it's also voters. A lot of the voters that I've spoken with list crime as a top issue, and some of those attack ads do seem to be working. Voters have referenced those ads to me. Do you think that your stance on clemency, on crime, might be out of touch with Pennsylvania and with this moment? What do you say to someone who's concerned that this is not
not at all.
relaxed?
He's kicking authority in the balls.
We like that around here.
Well, I believe that every person that had some commutation, it's a tiny fraction. It's around.
Top issue is sexual anarchy.
You live in sexual
out of
anarchy.
Over 5,000 people in that situation, and every single person voted on this and supported it, from the warden, to the Secretary of Corrections, all the way down to the guards, and all 5 members of the board all voted yes, and the governor did. They signed off on that. So and I believe in redemption, and I would just ask anyone watching.
I made the balls purple, or chose purple balls, just because I wanted to be as clear as fuck that they are not actual balls, as to not get terms of service. I thought about hot pink. I thought about many different things. But I thought purple was the most standout color, that these are not real balls.
I would say, if you've seen Shawshank Redemption, the movie, and if you, at the end of the movie, you would vote to have Morgan Freeman's character die in prison, then that's the choice. That's really that you look at the end of it. And if somebody's done 40, 45, or even more than 50 years, and they've had a perfect record, and they have demonstrated a lot of remorse for what's done, I haven't met a single person that said, yeah, Morgan Freeman should die in prison. It's all a choice on redemption and giving somebody a chance to not die in prison that is of any danger to the public whatsoever.
But it's a little bit about priorities, right? And for voters who say, I'd rather prioritize the safety of me and of my kids in and around Philadelphia than prioritize
Truck nuts is what I Googled to get those.
Or lower sentences for criminals. What do you say to those voters?
Well, I actually have a record in fighting crime. As mayor of Braddock here during 4 terms.
He was secretly Batman.
Significant gun violence issue, and I ran for mayor in the first place to be a mayor to fight crime violence. And we went 5.5 years without a murder in town. And we made it effectively by partnering with the police and the community. And we funded the police. We funded the police and created a strong partnership between the police and the community. So I'm the only candidate that I'm actually
Usually based Fetterman over
Dr.
here.
Oz has never done anything about crime except going around and running a bunch of commercials lying about my record. But what's true,
He's
is
kicking
that
authority in the
during
balls.
my time as mayor, I stopped the killing here.
Do you think Democrats have messed up on the issue of crime? Have they hurt their chances because of the defund the police movement, for example?
No.
I don't support the fund, nor I ever have. And so, it's not really relevant to me in this race because I've been a strong proponent for the police and worked with a police department for nearly 14 years.
Do you disagree with how your party, though, has handled the issue of crime?
I'm only going to react to how I handled it and what I've always believed and what I've.
He's really mainstream with what the party says, ma'am. Like he is given like the party line. Talking about defund the police, that's us over here that are a very small part of the Democratic coalition. A lot of us don't even consider ourselves Democrat, I would assume.